And last time we did boxes 27, 28, and 2 words of 29. So we're going to continue what we were doing. And here we go in where we are going to do box 29, box 30, and hopefully we can even go further. We're really getting close to finishing all those boxes. I'm really excited to actually start learning how to do that tafsir and decoding the actual words. Those were just pretty much the beginning. So here we go. And af'al, that is the base in where you're basically doing that hamza with it, and it's exactly like we were doing before. So atamma, yutimmu, what we're doing, you're taking out the hamza and you're putting a ya for the future present tense. And for the imperative tense, so let's put future, present, and here's the imperative. And mutim is basically the person, and itmam is the, what did we call it? Noun of the verb. All right, so let's do it. Atamma is the past tense, means to complete. But I want you to see one thing here. Ahabba yuhibbu, ahalla yuhillu, asarra yusirru. So you could see that you pretty much have a very common and pretty much an easy pattern, except when it comes to having the vowel in the middle. Then you've got, so all these would actually have a different pattern, right? You can see it right there. And adhaqa, why is it a different pattern? Well, simply because there is a vowel in the middle. It becomes an irregular verb because there's a vowel. So all the ones that I put in this big red, in this big red mark simply means that they are irregular. So let's go for the regular ones and see. So the regular ones, maybe I should color it in a different color so we could actually see it. Here we go. Here's well, I wanted blue. Here we go. So, and what we're going to see are these. So let's just look at the pattern first. Ahabba yuhibbu, ahalla yuhillu. The pattern, asarra yusirru, adalla yudillu, a'adda yu'iddu. So a pretty even pattern, nothing about it. So the past tense, the present tense, and of course let's just look at the imperative form of it. Ahabba ahbib, ahalla ahlil, asarra asrir, adalla adlil, a'adda a'did. So here's the imperative. You could see that there is that pattern, really straightforward, nothing to it. Let's go see for the person that's doing it, and which is the fa'il, and see. Atamma mutim, ahabba muhib, ahalla muhil, asarra musir, adalla mudil, a'adda mu'id. You could see all you're doing is pretty much adding for the fa'il, for the person that's doing that action. All you're adding is the meme with a dhamma, and you're taking out the hamza, and you're putting a kasra on the second letter to make the person. Well, let's see for the noun of the verb and what it sounds like. It sounds like if'al, so let's see what it sounds like. Atamma itmam, ahabba ihbab. You could see, remember, what you're adding is pretty much an a right there, and you're putting a kasra in the beginning, and you're pretty much maintaining those other parts and in making it that sound. Itmam, you're keeping those main parts of the verb. All right, so let's go on and actually see what they mean. Atamma, completed. So when you're completing something, atamma, completed. And let's move on. Yutimmu, completing. Atmim, you're asking him, atmim lana, meaning complete. Atmim, meaning complete. Fulfill. Complete it and fill out every missing gap. Mutim, wallahu, mutimmu nurihi. Mutim, the one that is completing. Mutim, completing. Mutimmu nurihi. And it can also mean to fulfill, by the way. So mutim can also mean to complete or to fulfill. Itmam is the completion itself. The completion itself or the fulfillment itself. Itmam. Now let's go ahead for ahabba. Ahabba. And remember when, because the root is not atamma, but the root is actually tamama. The root is actually tamama, but here they put the meme with the meme and it became tamma. All right, and here atamma would mean that there was a force that was put in it, which is what we get from the hamza. Now right there, the hamza, there was a force put in it and that made it complete. All right, ahabba. Ahabba, there was either the force or that there was an entrance. All right, so ahabba, the root of ahabba is hababa. All right, here ahabba, and the ba was put inside the ba, and here we go. We got habba, which means love or loved. Hub is love, but habba or hababa, habba is loved. Ahabba, there was an effort that was put in and basically entered in love. Ahabba, loved. All right. Yuhibbu, loving. Ahbib, you're asking him to bring love or love. No, أحبب حبيبك هونا ما, meaning love your friend. When you love your friend, don't love them, overly love. Make sure that it is in moderation, because that friend may turn into your enemy one day. That's the hadith. So even when you love, don't overly love. Don't make blind love. And this is unfortunately more common in women than in men. That when they go in an emotion, they will delve in it deeply rather than keep a side to it. So that's why women tend to be more emotional, because when they love, they will love blindly. When they hate, they will hate with all their feelings. They don't know moderation. That person becomes the most evil person on earth. And when they love, they are willing to love to the point of worship. Muhib. Muhib is the person that is loving, the loving person, the person that's loving. Okay, not the person that is loved. All right, muhib, because the person that is loved is al habib. Habib is the person that is loved. Ihbab or hub. Okay, hub. Ihbab is the actual. You're bringing in different factors to make that love possible. That's ihbab. But hub is love itself. Hub is love itself. And of course, in Islam, let's see, let's just actually look and actually see how many times does the word love appear in the Quran. I'm just going to look it up right now. So here it says 16 times. How many times did they put it there? 64. I'm not sure why they put it 64 when it says 16. Let's look at it again. And here we go. It's all 16 times. I'm not sure where they got the 64 from. So let's go ahead and look at ahalla. Ahalla, and here would mean two things. Look at here where they did a good job on that one, in where to make lawful and to cause to dwell. All right. So it means two different things. In where ahalla, it can mean to dwell or dwelled, and it can also mean to make lawful. What does that mean? To make something legit, to make something legitimate, to make something as it is legal. This comes from the root halal. Remember halal and all the halal things that we do. That's exactly what we're looking at. So ahalla, we're talking about either dwelling or dwelled, or that somebody considered something as legal or something as permissible. Ahalla. The word, the root for it is actually halala. Halala, just like this one, hababa, and it became habba. Tamama, tamma. how did it jump from tamama into tamma? So in Arabic, they don't like two letters of the same letters actually be with each other, so they would put them together and put a shadda instead. So just assimilate them together and put a shadda instead to make it easy, and that's the same thing. So all these sarra, dalla, adda, and the original root is sarara, dalala, adada. But then they blended those two double same letters together. So here, ahalla, the root is halala, halala, and then it became ahalla. And here, ahalla means in the past that they regarded something as legitimate, or legalized something, or they dwelled in something. How do I know if it's talking about dwelling in something or whether it's talking about legalizing something? You're going to look at the context. Yuhillu, legalizing or dwelling. Ahlil, now you're in imperative form and you're telling him to legalize something or to dwell in something. Muhil is basically the person that's legalizing something, but muhil, I don't think it actually comes to dwell. I would have to think about that one. Ihlal, this one comes to dwell in something, or ihlal can also mean to legalize something. And from it comes another noun of the verb halal, to regard something as permissible, or something is permissible, halal. And it doesn't have to be in meat. Most people think that halal can only be in slaughter and meat. That is actually not the case. You could have halal contracts and transactions, you can have halal food, you can have halal clothes, you can have halal relationships. All those different sides would mean that it's legal, it's legitimate, it's permissible. All right. And ihlal can also mean in where you are occupying something, which is dwelling in something. So ihlal, the actual occupation. So you occupied a seat, all right? You occupied probably a room, whatever it is, meaning you are in it. You dwelled in it, therefore you had taken it over, that it has become occupied by you. All right, asarra comes from the root sarara, sarara. So in this situation, what we've got is asarra, to conceal, speak secretly. So asarra, that they kept it a secret. And here it's in the past tense. Asarra, made it in concealed, yusirru, concealing. Asrir, conceal. Now you're making an imperative. Musir is the person that's concealing. Israr is the process of, it's more of an adjective or an adverb. Israr would be the actual concealing, but sir is the secret itself. So sir is the secret. Adalla is now going to be right here. Adalla is basically to send astray. Adalla, when, well, you're misleading others. All right, adalla, you're misleading others. And so misleading, or no, adalla would mean misled because it's in the past tense. Yudillu, misleading. Adlal, you're asking him to mislead. Mudil is basically the person that's being misled. All right, mudil is the person that's misleading others. And idlal is the process of misleading. And dalal is delusion. Well, if you're misleading others, or the dalal is basically the noun of it. Dalal. And here we go. So this dalal, what makes something dalal? Well, makes something dalal is when you don't have, when you don't stand on truth, therefore you're in dalal. therefore you're being misled. You're pretty much led astray because you don't have a spot or a corner to base your vision on, and therefore you'll be lost all around other places because you don't even know where to go. So when we're looking about misleading, when we're talking about misleading, we're talking about not having a corner, a base to start from. That's why in Islam, you gotta have a base to start from. And that is al-wahy, before you even start going left and right and probably way off in your understanding of the world. There's a base that you want to start up from. All right, let's go for a'adda. A'adda is prepared. A'adda, prepared. And it can be in different ways of preparation. It doesn't have to be military. It many times it can come in the form, in speaking about i'dad, when you're talking about it's more of a military lexicon, but you can also do i'dad, you can also do that preparation for other things, but oftentimes it comes in a military lexicon, in where you're preparing the equipment, you're preparing some kind of a force in order to lead a certain task. So here we go. A'adda, prepared. Prepared. Yu'iddu, preparing. A'did means you're asking him to prepare and to, put the equipment together. A'did, mu'id is basically the person that's preparing. I'dad is the actual preparation. And of course, comes from it is ma'addat. Ma'addat are basically the tools, right? So that ma'addat would be the tools to prepare something, the tools for preparation. All right? Look at the words. In Arabic, you always have to have that root, and from that root, you would build all those different words. Let's go ahead. So ma'addat would be the tools, whether they were military tools or school tools, pencils, paper, whatever it is. All right, now we go for another type, and those are the irregular verbs. So a little bit tricky, but the good news is that you pretty much have a pattern. Let's see the pattern. أذاق in the past, يذيق, أراد, يريد, أصاب, يصيب, أطاع, يطيع, أقام, يقيم, أمات, يميت. Now you could see the pattern of a past tense and a present tense. A present tense or a future tense. So let's see right here. We're going to just look at those and kind of scrutinize them. And let's see. أذاق, يذيق. Let's see the imperative form of it. أذاق is the past. أذق, you're ordering him. أراد, أرد. أصاب, أصب. أطع, أقم, أمت. And those would be the imperative. All right. Let's see the person that's doing it. And that would be أذاق, مذيق. أراد, مريد. مصيب, مطيع. مقيم, مميت. Now remember that what you're going to look at is basically the main parts of the verb. The main parts, meaning the main letters, and that's how you're going to add those little additions in order to bring about what you're doing. All right, so let's do it. The final one, إذاق, إرادة, that's the noun of the verb. إصابة, إطاعة, إقامة, إماتة. We're going to look at those meanings now and just see it. أذاق, meaning that tasted, but there was, remember, there's that hamza, so there was some mutual, some bilateral, there was another person that was involved. Let's see, أذاق, in where أذاق, it's like they put in a force to let others taste, because أذاق, to taste, okay, tasted, or made the person taste. All right, يذيق, the present future tense, and making the person taste. أذق, taste. You're أذق. But here, remember, it's actually جبيل. أذق. أذق would mean let the person taste. Let them taste. مذيق is basically the person that's helping the other person taste. مذيق. So now we're talking about there was an actual person that's letting others taste, etc. All right. إذاقة is the actual tasting. So not the actual taste, but the actual process of letting the person taste. Okay, so it's like you're giving the person, probably, a try to kind of taste it and really see. Well, here's one very important thing to mention is that when we're talking about dhaqa, it doesn't necessarily have to be involved with tongue tasting. It doesn't have to be with tongue tasting. It can also be that the person is tasting in terms of sensation. So the Quran, oftentimes it speaks about a type of a dhawq, where they're tasting in terms of feeling. So they're feeling pain, they're feeling happy, those are tasting, meaning sensing. All right, or referring to sensation more than an actual feeling of, tongue taste. Let's do for arada. Arada comes from the root, you could see rada, and we can see arada, and you could see yuridu. All right, rid. Arada and wanted. Arada, wanted, intended. Yuridu, intending. Arid, you're telling him to want, that he has to want. Murid is basically the person that is murid, the person that is intending, the person that is wanting. And in Sufi, the murid is basically the student. In Sufi terms, this is very common in Sufi terms, in where the murid is basically the person that is wanting, the person that is seeking. And that's why you could see in some websites that are Sufi based, they call them seekers guidance, because the murid comes from it. It comes from that the person is seeking guidance, so they will be murid. They're seeking something. And of course the murid, that's more of a, seeker's guidance, that's more of that's a Sufi based area, and then they will go from the term murid. And irada, and of course the word murid in the Sufi term, it is based on the idea that the sheikh has some knowledge that is past and beyond the ability of a person's normal ability to seek on their own. So they need a sheikh. That's the Sufi term, not my term, right? So they would need a guider to help them find the way, because the sheikh is supposed to have some direct relations with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in order to help that person know the truth. But that's a Sufi term. That's not necessarily every Islamic term. Irada is basically the intention or the wish, but it is more accurate to say irada is the potential. Irada is the potential itself, the person's ability, the person's potential, the effort that they are putting in. So what irada, what potential do you have? Irada, what is the potential here? So you could see it started out with the intention to going for a potential. All right, it's amazing how moved with it. In order to have an intention, you have to have potential. In order to want something, you have to have the potential. You have to have the power. You have to have the determination. And that is al-irada. Al-irada. See, in Lugha Arabiya, even the words themselves, they will lead you to how to understand even those roots. So if you want something, you have to have the potential to it, regardless potential evil or good. All right. Asaba, to befall, to inflict. So here, the word asaba can also mean to inflict, but it can also mean to get to the target. To get to the target. So that's why. So I'm going to put right here target, because the word yusib and the word saub actually comes from sawaba, which means to target. So this is the root sawaba, which means to target. And here asaba would be, asaba would mean to inflict, to befall, but there was a target that was aimed at. Yusibu, they hit the target. So hitting the target, meaning that, or it can also mean, remember, if we're talking about target, or whether we're talking about to inflict, or we could also mean to be right, meaning correct. All right. So here, asaba, that the person hit the target, meaning they were right, or hit the target and they inflicted. Right? So it can hit the target to being on the right side, or it can hit the target to do something evil. All right? But it did something, it inflicted something. And yusibu, meaning to, again, hit the target, whether in the right direction or whether in the wrong direction. So if the person was yusibu, if the person was musib, because we're talking about the person, if the person was musib, meaning hit the target, he was right, and therefore yusib, meaning to either, if it's, look at the context, if it's yusib to meaning inflicted, if it's evil, then inflicted. If it's right, then hit the target. So yusib, hitting the target, whether yusib, whether to do the right thing or to do the evil thing. Asib, you're telling him to hit the target. Remember, hit the target whether negatively or positively. Musib is the person that is right. And isaba can mean two things. Isaba can mean the pain that was inflicted, which is the wound, and isaba can also mean the noun of the verb of to be right. But here's a funny thing. So for a man, the person is musib. Meaning that he hit the target. But for a woman, she is musibah. She is right. But you would have to add that ta marbuta. I'm just going to say a joke to you guys. So, a man and a woman, they're husband and wife, they go to a judge. All right? And by the way, the word musibah can also mean catastrophe. All right? Just keep that in mind, because another noun of the verb for the root asaba is actually musibah. It can be catastrophe. So a catastrophe is musibah. All right? And a musibah can also be a woman that is right. So a man and a woman went to a judge, a husband and a wife. They go to the judge, and each one is putting forward their argument, and they go into an argument. So the judge finally said, you are musib, and for the woman he told her, you are a musibah. And of course, in the context, he said, the man, he called him that he was right, he hit the target, he nailed it. All right? But for the woman, he told her, you're a musibah. You can understand it that he meant to say that she also nailed it. And you could also, based on the context, you could see that he called her a catastrophe. Called her a catastrophe, that she was a big problem. So you could see that you can have the same word have different meanings, and from that you can get a connotation. So musiba, he called her a musiba, even though in Arabic musiba would also mean that she is right. So ironically, that in Arabic, if a woman is right, regardless, she is a catastrophe. All right, and I guess that's the misogyny in the Lugha Arabiya sometimes. But this is, just on the side. No, in Arabic, the language itself, there's no such thing as the language itself actually being misogynist, okay? Because you've got the Shams, Qamar, Mu'annath, Mudhakkar, it can be for anything. You've got hell, and Jahannam is actually masculine, and Jannah is feminine, all right? So it doesn't mean that the language itself is misogynist. So for all those feminists out there, all right, and let's move on. And we're still with those words that are with those words that are irregular. And ata'a, ata'a, and here to obey. So ata'a, obeyed, ata'a, obeyed, yuti'u, obeying, ata', you're ordering him, obey. Muti' is the person that is obedient. Ita'a is the actual force that is put in order to make others obey. Ita'a, or the obedience. And of course, ta'a is obedience. All right, is obedience. And by the way, the word obedience, just on a side here, many times there can be different connotations based on that society. So the word ta'a, if we're talking about obeying street lights, obeying rules, school rules, whatever it is, it's usually not put in as a negative. It's not given any negative connotation. But due to, I would say, feminism force, that feminist force, there's that when we speak about obeying husband, there's always that connotation that somehow they're supposed to be on the same level, and therefore it gives a very slave master idea. And that's why in the feminist, I would say the feminist influence on the word ta'a, in where if it's relating to street lights, if it's relating to any type of obedience to other things, it's not seen as a form of slavery, master type of imagination or referral or connotation. But because of the feminist idea that a slave master, that a woman was enslaved through marriage, that she was oppressed through marriage, so that's where that feeling that if a woman obeys her husband, that somehow she is enslaved. In Islam, no, that was never there. The idea of a woman being owned by the husband was not there. So for that connotation, please do not put that in the text, in the Islamic text, and misunderstand the word ta'a. Just keep it in mind, because ta'a can be, in Lugha Arabiya, can be a form of a good thing and can be an evil thing, because you can obey something evil, or you can obey something good. All right, you do ta'a as a form of discipline, and not having whatsoever a connotation of a slave and a master. Just to keep that in mind. It doesn't have to carry with it that idea of a slave and a master, because that idea comes from a whole package within the Western history, in where slavery had all those brutal behaviors that were inflicted on the slaves. Okay, now let's go ahead. And aqama, meaning that the person, aqama could mean to establish, and aqama could also mean to set upright. Well, so what does that mean? To establish or to set upright. And the root from that is actually qama. So when you say qama, the person stood up. Yawm al-qiyamah is the day of standing. Right? Here it comes from the qama, qiyama, yaqumu. Right? You can see it right there. Here's the root. So aqama, to sit up. All right? To establish. To sit up, to set upright. And from it, I'm going to talk about al-qawama in just a bit, which many times oftenly misunderstood. All right, so here comes from the root. Yuqimu would be to establish or set upright or setting upright, establishing. But yuqimu can also mean to dwell. Okay, sorry. And you're like, wait a minute, I thought we said that, where was it? Ahalla was to dwell. Yes, and yuqimu can also mean if you're establishing something in a certain place, you're dwelling in it. If we're talking about a place, then you're dwelling in it. If we're talking about establishing home, etc., then we're talking about also from the root, iqama meaning a place of residence. Iqama right there, a place of residence, and iqama could also mean that establishment. So if you're establishing in a specific place, you're dwelling in it. If you're establishing, a lifestyle, this is also residence. This is also what you're putting together to help yourself dwell in something and establishing and set up upright. So aqim, you're telling him to establish, giving him that order. Muqim is basically the establishment, the person that is establishing, but il-muqim, the person, and muqim could also mean the resident. Il-muqim could also be the person, since they established that place, and therefore their residence there. All right? Il-iqama, residence. So here, muqim, resident, and iqama, residence. Right? You could see it right there. And that's why I want to look at the word aqama, and from there, when we look at الرجال قوامون, the ayah says قوامون, that actually comes from here, also qama and aqama, etc. You can come to realize that the word men are qawamun. In English, many times, if you go to the Quran translated copies, they will say superior. They will put maintainers, etc. So you could see that the word qawam, actually, since it comes from that, it doesn't mean superior. It doesn't mean superior. That's a very erroneous translation, because the root is actually qawma. The root is actually to establish. So in that situation, qawwamun, in other words, it would more be to help establish. They're qawwamun, the establishers, they're the founders, they are the ones to maintain, because they are putting and setting something upright. So here, they would be the ones to also, can we get the meaning of that authority? Yes, we can. Why? Because when we look at al-qayyim ala shay, here's al-qayyim. Okay, when we look at al-qayyim would mean the owner, the taker, the person that's taking care of something. The one, al-qayyim is basically the one that is the base. All right, al-qayyim is the one that's taking care of something. So here, qawwamun would be the plural of qayyim. One is qayyim, many are qawwamun. And therefore, when we look at الرجال قوامون على النساء, it would actually mean that men are the ones that are establishing, the ones that are maintaining, the ones that are preserving the main base, that they have to act as the main base to make this household stand, get established, sit up, right, get on to the mission. So that's where the men, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would regard them as responsible to do al-qawwam, and be the qawwamun, and actually have that responsibility, right? So it doesn't mean all those, but and this is really important, because when you're looking at, when you're looking at men and women and the differences between their psychology and their behaviors and the different sides to it, you could see that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, here is setting out what does it mean to be masculine. It means that they have to learn that ultimate responsibility. They have to learn, and they need to get all those training to be the person that is al-qawwam, the person that is doing the master responsibility in order to establish this home. And that's why they have to be those responsible ones to establish the home financially, probably, in making sure the security, making sure that all the details are met to establish an upright home. So you could see upright, to establish an upright home. And this is the man's responsibility and not a woman's responsibility. This is something that we have to learn. Let's move on right here. And amata. I know some people, please, for those that are attending, I'm not a feminist and not a misogynist either. But I do believe that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created men differently and created women also differently. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gifted women certain things and gifted men certain things, and that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made the differences in order for us to complete one another. In order for us to complete one another, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had given men certain gifts and given women certain gifts. And those gifts are not to overcome one another, but there can be no establishment if there was not one area of leadership, an area that is acting as al-qawama, the base that is acting as the main founding base, the main pole, to be more accurate, the pole in where everything else is built on. If we don't have a pole to build anything, we're not going to be able to set up anything, from a tent to a house. And every single building, the more pressure there is, the more you need to put up poles to make sure that it does not fall. This is the ABC of architecture, any architecture. So just keep that in mind. I'm not a feminist and I'm not a misogynist either, but I try and put an effort to look at the issue of men, women from the lens of Quran and Sunnah, not from a feminist lens and not from a misogynist lens, but look at it from the lens of Quran and Sunnah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said that men are qawamun. I'll leave it at that. Amata, to put into death. Amata, to put into death, to cause someone to die. All right, amata. And yumitu is basically causing someone to die. All right, amit, you're telling him, kill, cause that person to die. Mumit is basically fatal, deadly. Mumit. And you might say, well, wait a minute, I thought it was supposed to be the person. So here, this is actually a mistake, because the person is, it can be the person that's causing the person to die, and the person that is dead is mayyit. The dead person is mayyit. Alright? The dead person is mayyit. In mumit, it can be fatal, deadly, it can be referring to the person, and it can be referring to a substance as well. So poison is mumit. It's deadly. It can cause someone to die. Imata is the noun of the verb in where the imata, which is the process of causing the person to die. Let's see the box number 30. So we've got a few minutes. At least we can complete some things. Ahya, to bring to life. And the reason why we said to bring to life, remember, because of that hamza, in where there is a force. Ahya, akhfa, ara, aghna. And notice here that we have awfa until at least here. We have at the very end, which is naqas, which is the irregular verb, and there is an actual vowel at the end. So there are certain rules to it. Ahya, yuhyi, akhfa, yukhfi. And the imperative, akhfi, ahyi, muhyi is the person. Let's just look at these first. All right, let's see. Ahya, yuhyi, akhfa, yukhfi, ara, yuri, aghna, yughni, alqa, yulqi, anja, yunji, awha, yuhi, awfa, yufi. Now you could see a beautiful pattern in where you're making the future present tense of it have a you to it, and then you are taking out the hamza that's in the beginning, and you're adding that e at the end, and you're putting a kasra. You're putting a kasra. So akhfa yukhfi, ara yuri, aghna yughni, alqa yulqi, anja yunji, awha yuhi, awfa yufi. And let's see the imperative form of it. Ahyi, akhfi, ari, aghni, alqi. What did we do? We took the last, and this is harf al-illa. We took the last vowel out, and we replaced it with a kasra. Ari, alqi, anji, awhi, awfi. We took out the last vowel and we replaced it with a kasra. Now, as for the person that's performing the verb, and muhyin, mukhfin, murin, mughnin, mulqin, munjin, muhin, mufin. That would be the person that's performing it. And as for the noun of the verbs, ihya, ikhfa, ira'a, I would have to review that one. Ighna, ilqa, inja, iha, ifa. Notice that they're pretty much a very straightforward and really simple patterns. Let's see what they mean. All right, let's look at the meanings, and hopefully we can finish it. And let's go really fast to it so we can finish it. Ahya, to bring to life. Ahya, to bring to life, to give life. So here it says in the past tense, gave life, and yuhyi, giving life. Ahyi, give life. Yeah, that's an imperative. Muhyi is actually the person that gives life. Ihya is the noun of the verb and the actual process of bringing back to life. Bringing to life. Akhfa comes from the root kha fi ya. Kha fi ya. Let's write it down. Maybe I could use the red one. Kha fi ya, which means to hide, conceal. So here, akhfa, concealed, hid. Yukhfi, concealing. Akhfi, conceal. Mukhfin, the person that's concealing. Al-ikhfa was basically the concealment. Ara meaning showed. Yuri, showing. Ari, you're asking him to show. Murin is the person that's showing. And ira'a, I'm not sure that this is actually accurate. It's actually Well, there's المراء. المراء is something different, but comes from the same root. Mira is basically when the person is doing something out of a shell, just to show off. All right, that's mira. And mir'ah is the mirror. Mir'ah. Mir'ah. Mir'ah is mirror. Why? Because it relates to showing. So what is a mir'ah? It's the device that you use to see. It's the device that you use to see. أغنى. أغنى. أغنى, to fulfill, enrich. To fulfill or enrich. Fulfill or enrich. And of course the past tense of it is going to be fulfilling, enriching. And the past tense, the imperative form, enrich and fulfill. أغني. مغن. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enrich you and fulfill you from any harm, and fulfill you away from, all the different needs that you may desire, and fulfill you in different forms. Mughnin is the one that's fulfilling, the one that's enriching. And let's see, إغناء is fulfillment, enrichment. ألقي, ألقى, sorry, not ألقي, ألقى, to cast, to throw, to place. ألقى, ألقى. So here, casted, threw, placed. So ألقي, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would tell Prophet Musa, ألقي ما في يمينك, just throw it, just cast it, just let it go. يلقي, yulqi, and it's amazing, because if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells Prophet Musa alayhi salam, alqi ma fi yaminik, just told him alqi, just let it go. So when you say alqi, it's like don't put any effort to it, don't put any force, don't put any energy from you, let that energy be a divine energy. And that's the miracle that happened with Prophet Musa alayhi salam, and it's teaching Prophet Musa alayhi salam that when you're feeling that weakness, just let go and let your Lord Almighty take care of everything. I love it, and I love it. Okay, now I'm gonna get that feeling. I love it when you're feeling, it's like, just let go and let Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala take care of everything. Alqi ma fi yaminik. Just when you're feeling hopeless, just let Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala take care of everything, and everything will be under the divine control, under the divine power. And yulqi. Yulqi meaning casting, throwing. Alqi. Alqi ma fi yaminik. Throw, cast. Giving him that imperative. Mulqin. Mulqin is the person that's casting or throwing. Ilqa is the actual casting or throwing. Anji. Anja, sorry, my bad. Anja meaning to rescue, or anja, rescued and saved. Yunji is rescuing. Anji, rescue. Munjin is the person. Inja is the actual process of rescuing. All right, and of course comes from it is najat. Najat means rescue. Rescue. Najat means rescue, and najat can also mean safety. Finally, the person is in a place of najat. They were saved. They were saved. They're secured. They're now safe. Najat would also mean safe or safety. Awha. Awha, inspire or reveal. Now the word, I want to comment on that one, because the word awha can also mean that there is a hidden message, hidden, let me correct that, hidden fast message. A hidden fast message that was sent. So awha, and it can be an evil message and it can be a good message. It doesn't have to be good. Because inna shayateen la yuhuna ila awliyaihim, that shayateen can also do that wahi, in where they'll give you that fast hidden message and you will feel the shaitan probably telling you not to wake up for fajr. It's like, just sleep, look at the cozy bed. And I watched one time a very funny, it was supposed to be like a da'wah advertisement. It was the person, wanting to wake up for fajr, and then the shaitan comes in. This is just, it's like an animation. A shaitan comes in and starts hugging the person that's wanting to wake up for fajr, and then starts to, get the blanket to cover them more to make them feel cozy, and starts hugging the Muslim from waking up from fajr, and pretends to be the very careful, securing, warm place that's caring about that person. So here, that is shayateen yuhuna ila awliyaihim. The shayateen would actually give that secret hidden message. And it can also be a positive thing, which is just like Jibreel alayhi salam was the wahi, was giving that message, the fast message, and the fast hidden message, hidden from you, but it was revealed to the Prophet ﷺ. All right, it was al-wahi. So awha would mean gave a message, a fast message, gave a message that was hidden from others, but it was, the person is feeling it, the person's aware of it. Yuhi, meaning giving the fast message, revealing, inspiring. Awhi, meaning give the fast hidden message. Muhin is basically the person that's giving the message, but muhin many times can mean the person that's giving the message, and can also mean the person that is insinuating. So il-iha can sometimes be where you're giving some kind of an insinuation, where you're insinuating something, you're giving some kind of a meaning, what is the other word for it? You're hinting, all right? You're hinting something. So it can mean to reveal, inspire, and can also mean to hint. Iha is the actual hinting. It can mean hint, it can mean inspiration, it can also mean al-wahi is the revelation, and can also mean the message that was given from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to others or to the prophets. All right? So when we look at, for example, أوحينا إلى أم موسى أوحى ربك إلى النحل, that your Lord Almighty gave the wahi on the to the bee, or Musa. It doesn't actually necessarily mean that there was the malaika Jibreel alayhi salam telling the bee what to do, but there was a hint, there was a message, there were certain signals that the bee would get in order to know that, this is where the pollen is, this is what you're supposed to do, in order to make certain things happen, honey, whatever it is. So there's that signal. So when a lot of things, without us realizing, all around us would work with certain signals. We don't know why we would get some certain feelings, some certain things, but we just happen to get a signal, to feel, to get that inspiration. And here, malaika, wahi in between Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Jibreel alayhi salam, and the Prophet ﷺ was not an issue of a hidden signal, but it was it was clear that the wahi was in different forms onto the prophets and messengers. It was a form of probably a sleep. It was a message that was given to them through sleep. It was a message that they were getting information from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and it can also be the wahi where the wahi would come in person, just like in Hadith Jibreel, and the wahi was to actually give words where it was only the Prophet ﷺ that was hearing it. It was only the Prophet ﷺ that was knowing it. He was knowing that information that was sent on to the Prophet ﷺ through Jibreel alayhi salam, and the wahi is different ways. Awfa, and that's going to be the last word that we're going to do today. Awfa, and actually let's go for amana. Awfa, to fulfill. Awfa, fulfilled. Awfa, fulfilled. Yufi, fulfilling. Awfi, you're asking who to fulfill. Mufin, the person that's fulfilling. Ifa is the fulfillment. Ifa, fulfillment. Lots of meanings. Amana, ata. Should we continue these boxes? Yeah, it'll make me feel good. At least I know that I completed it. Amana, actually comes from the root amina, or yeah, and amana, and then the amana, and then the became that, that long a. So amina would mean to feel secure. To feel secure. So amana, when you believe because you felt secure to a certain idea, to a certain epistemology, and then therefore you had faith in it. Amana, and believed, had faith in it. Yu'minu, meaning that the person is believing. Amin is you're ordering the person to believe. Mu'min is the believer, or the person that's feeling that security. And Iman is faith. Iman is faith. Comes from the root amina. Ata would mean, ata, it can mean to give, and it can also mean to come. I know, you're like, what? How did we get there? To come or to give. Ata. Yu'ti, so yu'ti ukulahu, for example, giving or coming. Yu'ti, or more to give. Yu'ti is more to give than, because ya'ti would to come. Ya'ti, to come, and yu'ti, that they were given. But you want to there's gonna be that verb in which is called mabni al-majhul when it's a passive form. We'll talk about that later. Yu'ti, the person is given. The person is given. Ati, give. You're asking the person. Mu'ti is basically the person that gives. The person that gives. Ita, which is the actual process of giving. So when we say ita is zakah, giving zakah. Adha comes from the root adhiya, which means to harm. Adha, that the person harmed. Yu'dhi, harming. Adhi, harm. You're telling the person to harm others. Mu'dhi is basically the person that's harming others. The person that's constantly harming others. Ida is harm. Ida is harm itself. Ida, it harm itself. And that, why would anybody want to end with harm? Let's see what the verb after it is. Hold on, let's just check it out. Tafakkur. Beautiful. At least we can end with that one. Tafa'ala, tafakkara. We'll just go over that one. That way we won't end with harm. Tafakkara, yatafakkaru, tafakkar, mutafakkir, tafakkur. This is really easy because that's a regular verb. Tafakkara, meaning reflected. Tafakkara comes from the root fakara. Fakara means remember, think, or thought. So tafakkara, the person, and every time you would have that shadda on the verb, that would mean that there was a gradual process. So tafakkur, there was that gradual you're pondering in something, gradual thinking, and you are just living in that wondering in those ideas. يتفكروا. So تفكر would be the past. So wondered, thought, pondered. يتفكروا, pondering, thinking. تفكر, you're telling him to ponder, to think. متفكر, متفكر, the person that's pondering, the person. Tafakkur is the actual ponderance, wonder, ponderance, and reflection. Let's all reflect on what we did, and if there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. And I'd be happy to answer any question. Sorry, you guys. So I promised that I would end on the top, and then I had to go little by little, little by little. We can never end. I'm so excited to finish. So how many boxes do we have? Hey, are we almost finished? Let's see. We got 32. We got 33, 34. Hey, we're almost finished. MashaAllah, good job. We could only have 2 more classes. That's good news. And then we'll go for the actual hands-on. I'm excited, very excited, with the actual hands-on, and then you will see right in before your eyes the miracle. But you gotta memorize all those meanings that we did, and the deconstructing the verb and the construction of the verb. So I'm excited, and jazakumullah khairan, everybody. I don't see anybody putting any questions. And after this class, or after we finish the Arabi, this Arabi that we're doing, I was actually thinking of making. My husband wrote a book. It's called Barahin Nabuwa. It's the evidences that prove the Prophet ﷺ as a prophet, like all the miracles. Well, it means miracles of the Prophet. That's Barahin Nabuwa. Anyhow, and I thought it would be good. The book is not translated into English. It's almost an 800-page book. But I thought it would be good to at least make them into a series of lectures. Even if the book is not translated, at least we can explain it. I'm so excited about that. So stay tuned. I'm so excited. All right. It seems like there aren't any questions, so we'll continue next week, inshallah, with what we're doing. I'm excited. And assalamu alaikum. See you all. Oh, there's the Tuesday and the Wednesday classes. Those are the Quran classes. And then there's the Thursday class we got. Hopefully I won't get those pains again when I was doing that hadith. So hopefully, inshallah, we'll finish that as well. And there's also the Let's Talk Islam. And I'd be happy. I wanted to do a specific topic on Let's Talk Islam. So we'll see what topics you suggest before I put in my suggestion. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, everyone.